Hello and welcome to the Post to Post podcast for episode 106, June 21st, 2020. I'm Jason. That's Neil.
Hey, what's up?
We're coming at you over the internet again. This should be the last time we have to do one of these. Fingers crossed. Next week, we're going to be back in studio. And then after that, we're actually going on a little vacation, which I think Neil mentioned in one of his videos.
Heck yeah.
So we'll have a bunch of interesting stuff. We went down to our lake location, a couple days ago, and we scouted out a couple potential things to do, and things are in motion. So we'll see what happens, but it could be kind of cool.
We're trying to figure out where exactly we're going to film down there. So we're going to be sleeping in a camper or trailer. So we could film in there, which we probably will, but we'll also probably film a version, maybe not of this podcast or maybe something else, on an island down there. We're going to take his Sea-Doo across with all the equipment, or most of the equipment, and try and film on there. We'll have to bring some chairs too. I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's going to be multiple trips, I think, because we were thinking because we don't want to really skimp on the equipment. So we're like, how can we power these mixers and these microphones? And we're like, maybe my UPS will have enough juice in it to just take it over and plug everything in. So we don't know yet. We're going to try that. So
yeah,
if not,
we'll do some testing.
Yeah, we'll do some portable mics if that doesn't work, but it could be something cool anyways, just for people to see.
Yeah, but next week we should be almost certainly be in the actual legitimately created studio in person at your place next week.
The reason why we're not, I guess we can talk about that now, is we were going to have a special guest on. Our very first actual guest on the podcast was going to happen in this episode, but unfortunately I had to go up to the hospital today, and my wife went to the ER. It wasn't anything serious, but she just had to go in for like a blood test or something, and it took 3.5 hours because that's how hospitals go up here. So we weren't sure if we were going to be home in time to meet with the person that we scheduled to have this podcast with. So we just sent them a message and said, hey, let's reschedule for next week. They were totally cool with that. So we will jump into that conversation next week. So in terms of all of the Buffalo talk, there's so much to talk about with Buffalo right now. We're going to hold off for now, even though it's pretty much breaking news for this week. Our guest is from the Buffalo area and is very well versed with Buffalo Sabres and that organization. So we're going to hold all that conversation for next week and have them kind of give us a firsthand recount of what's going on back there.
Exactly. I mean, we could have the conversation ourselves, but I think it's better to save that conversation for that person joining us because it'll just make the conversation that much more valuable. So we will talk about it, but next weekend.
So we still got lots of things to talk about. We got Hub City news, we got COVID news, we got people news. There's a lot of different places we could go really from the start. So where do you want to go, Neil? It doesn't really matter to me.
Well, I read something this morning, and I don't know if it's true, but let's talk about some of the players and staff that have tested positive for COVID-19. Now, it is official news that a couple of, I think at least 3 Tampa Bay players have tested positive. I believe some Philadelphia Flyers staff members have tested positive. But the most recent thing I read this morning, and I can't find out if it's actually 100% confirmed or not, but Austin Matthews has tested positive.
It is confirmed.
It is confirmed now?
Okay. So I was listening to some news sites talk about this, or some internet radio stations, because that's what I do. And it's kind of tricky because, and I am kind of on the fence about this now that I think about it. And I think you probably think a little bit different than me on this, just based on past conversations, but how do you view this situation? So if a player tests positive, do you think it's the public's right to know they tested positive? Because on one hand, that player has privacy for their medical stuff. Like people aren't supposed to release whether that person's anything that's wrong with them. Like they have a right to their medical privacy. The other hand is, well, this is COVID and we're trying to track it, and anyone that's come in contact with this person, it's good to know who has it and where they've been. So when the reporters found out it was Austin Matthews that had it, they actually went to their lawyers to find out if they were allowed to release that information, and they talked to the team, and I guess it was okayed. But in terms of the actual organization themselves, they have not released that it is that player, but it is that player for sure. And now that it is that player, all of the like Toronto Sun and the Leafs Lunch and all these like Toronto-based organizations are saying, whoa, Austin Matthews has it. Do we need to pause everything now? Like, it was fine when everyone else was getting it, but now a star player has got it. It's just funny. Like, oh, we got to take a step back now because the star players got it, or our star players got it.
I think that information being released, I kind of see it like injuries. I think the player would prefer to have his own choice whether that information was released, whether it's COVID-19 or whether it's a broken ankle or a concussion, whatever. But I think ultimately the decision comes down to the team and the medical staff on the team, whether they want to release that information or not. We've got players leading up to the playoffs in a normal year that get injured, and we don't even know what that injury is until 4 months later when the playoffs are over and they finally release the information. So things are a little bit different with COVID-19, but I don't know.
Do you like it? Okay, say this happens and the team decides not to release it, but a reporter finds out and then releases it. Do you like that, or do you think that player should be entitled to it, or do you think that's good news for the public to have? Like, see, there was an interesting point that there was I can't remember her name. I think her name was Andy or something like that. She was on one of the TSN radios, and she said, listen, if you're going to start a business, a joint venture or whatever with gambling companies, which the NHL is doing, then the people who are spending that money have the right to know if this person's going to be out. Like I'm not going to bet a bunch of money right now on the Toronto Maple Leafs if there's a possibility that Austin Matthews may not be in that first set of games or whatever.
That's a really good point.
There's that kind of point. I've never, ever thought of that kind of point of view before.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That reminds me of a question that I've gotten a lot recently. Are you going to do series preview videos, or why haven't you done that yet? And this is the exact reason why I haven't done it yet, because we don't know what players are going to get it and what players aren't going to get it. We don't even know the final rosters yet. We don't even know what players could potentially decline to play entirely. We don't know what players have medical issues that may be forced to decline, like a Max Domi with diabetes. I think he has diabetes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Type whatever.
Type 1 maybe? I don't know.
Yeah,
type 1 I think is
type 1.
Type 1 is the more serious one, I think. Yeah.
So I think I don't know if we have the right to know, but I think everyone wants to know. And she made a really good point, specifically with the people who are financially invested in the potential success of an individual player or a team. So it's a fine line on what's right and what's wrong. I don't know if there's a right answer.
Which wouldn't have been a case, if you go back even last year, because they didn't have the partnership with the gambling companies. But now that they do, that it just shows you like it's more than just you see on the surface. There's a lot of things going into it, because that could be potentially a lot of money being thrown around in there, and the people who are betting deserve to have the latest information. To, if they're going to be spending money, they have to know who's in, who's out, and
Totally.
It's weird.
We're talking potentially hundreds of millions of dollars. So
Yeah.
it's not like
Totally.
small bets and stuff. Like collectively, it's so much money, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So it is interesting that Austin Matthews got it, because he is a star player, and it was, you can't say it's not as serious when like third and fourth line players are just whoever gets it, because eventually a star just somehow was going to get it. But it is interesting to see what has happened over the last few days, because like places like Florida and Arizona, they're having the most COVID outbreaks they've had since this began. And that's where, like, especially with Florida, that's where the NBA and the MLS plan on holding all of their playoffs. So right as they're gearing up to get into the 1st of July and start their playoffs, the outbreak is just going crazy. Like they're fully open for business, which is what kind of made it attractive for those leagues to go there, because they were the only ones willing to accept them. But now they're potentially paying the price because everything's open and everything's crazy. And I think the more that this happens, the more you're going to have players sit back and say, hey, wait a minute. Like, let's just hold off a second. I'm not really sure if I want to take my family or take me into that. And if you read some of the articles online, there's been players speaking honestly to reporters that can say, anywhere is up from upwards of 40% of the players aren't happy with what's going on right now. So
yeah, I think it was a star player in the West that was interviewed.
It was a star player in the West and unnamed. Yeah.
Yeah, they were very disappointed, and they said that there's a lot of players who just say cancel the season, like we should not be playing right now.
Yeah, and he was asking for a full vote, like every single player gets a vote, and then you not just like the representatives, because the representatives from the teams, they may just say we don't want to do this, but we want to get paid, we want to worry about this, so let's just do it. But if you take it to an individual player vote and you see what actually every single player is thinking, it's not just those star players that want to go play that are it's going to be everyone, and it could be interesting.
I don't know how there's not a player vote. Even if they don't count it, even if it doesn't mean anything legally, still do a player vote. I can't even imagine them not doing it. Like, how could they make a decision on a broad level like that doesn't really affect them. Like the people making the decision, their health isn't really on the line. It's someone else's health. So not involving those players and those people individually in the vote, I think is a mistake.
Which is weird because that's sometimes how unions kind of go. Like,
yes.
Like sometimes the union has an agenda where they want something to happen, and it's either it's not everyone's voting on this. It's going to be like a regional vote, or like a heads of your group will vote on your behalf, or you have to come to this meeting, you have to talk, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes they make it hard for people to get their individual voice out. And sometimes an individual voice doesn't matter depending on, what type of union you're in. But I mean, this is, if every single player gets a chance to vote, which I agree they should get, it needs to happen. And if you don't get enough, then you don't get enough. But I can't necessarily fault players that don't feel safe to go into one of these places where, like, just in the States, like, it's just getting so bad and it's getting worse all the time. They're opening up. It's like I said, Arizona and Florida having their worst number of cases per day ever. And this is a couple weeks away from getting going. And like you said on the top, Tampa Bay players and coaches and staff getting it. So they shut down their camp. Right next door, the Blue Jays shut down their training facility. And then I think there was someone else, the Buccaneers, or I can't remember who it was.
Yep.
There was someone else. They shut down their camp. And now all of MLB's training facilities, they're saying for spring training or whatever, it's not spring training, I guess, anymore, but you have to have it in your own home city now. So instead of all going to Arizona and Florida, that's done. You're back to your... So it just seems like when you get more and more and more of these kind of cases and you get star players getting it, I don't think things are as certain as they were. Like, I still think it's going to happen, but maybe not quite to the degree that I thought before. Like, it's just like, ooh, yeah, maybe things aren't all working out. Like, and there's still lots of details for them to work out with the league and the union. Like, just because you set a date, you still have to fine tune all the details, which aren't worked out. Case in point, Hub Cities. And from what I've been reading, from the very beginning, is Vegas is a lock, and then they want to get one in Canada. But now it sounds like even American people are saying, like, why are you going to Vegas now? Like, go to British Columbia, go to Alberta. Like, you have, 82% more cases in the States in these areas you're looking at, because Vegas is the same way. Vegas is opening back up. Some of the casinos have been asked to, have tourists in. Tourists are in. So it's not like Disney World where you're completely separate, but even Disney has sent out a thing saying we want to open back up, and they're going to. So just this part of the park is going to be blocked off for the NBA players, while the rest of it is open up to regular people. Whereas before, when they were first talking about it, it was just the whole park's closed, and we're bringing NBA players in, so they have lots of amenities and restaurants and stuff. And then you have to get into the whole conversation of, well, wait a minute, are the people who work at those restaurants going to be staying in the bubble? Are the people who are cleaning your rooms going to be staying in that bubble? Are the people, all of the little things like the janitors, the garbage people, like everything, are they all staying in that bubble? Because if they aren't, they're still leaving and coming back. And no matter how much you quarantine the players, you're still putting them at risk if everyone's not in. And a lot of the staff are saying that they don't want to do that. And, they're generally speaking, those are pretty low paying jobs. So like, why would you, you know what I mean? Why would you want to put up with that? Like, yeah, I'm gonna work this job where I'm not really treated very well, and I have to stay away from my family at home for 3 months. Like, I don't know, that's a lot to ask. It's one thing when you're asking millionaires to get paid millions of dollars to go do that. It's another thing when you're just asking like regular Joes.
Yeah, so, I think that's why the players individually have concerns, because, like you said, the workers, the people bringing the garbage in and out, people making the food, are these people, how safe are these people being? Some people don't even agree with wearing a mask, and they think COVID-19 is a big conspiracy theory. So if you have someone like that working one of those frontline jobs, making food or whatever, not caring about COVID-19 and just doing their job because they need the money, like, there's risks there. So I understand individually the players having concerns. And as far as the cities, there are some good suggestions, but I don't think there are any perfect suggestions, because even if you just break it down to time zone, if they do Vegas and if they do Vancouver as those two hub cities, well, okay, what about the East Coast? Most of the population and hockey fans are on the East Coast. That's just the way that that's just the way that the cities are aligned within Canada and the United States. Most of us are on the East Coast, or at least, on the 50% on the right side if you're not on the coast. So if you think about time zones, hypothetically, it starts on time, everything's good, all the players are healthy, whatever. Then you have Vancouver and Vegas as the hub cities, and you have those early games. Say there's 3 games a day or 4 games a day. The first game is probably going to be at noon. Okay, is that noontime Pacific or is that noontime Eastern? So having cities, the hub cities that west, a game that starts there at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m., well, that's 11 or 12 Eastern time, which isn't unusual because some teams play that late. That's just the way that it works. That's time zones. But if you have 2 Eastern teams playing against each other at midnight Pacific, all the fans on the East Coast are going to have to stay up late. So that's going to affect viewership. There's all kinds of little things that go into making a decision on a hub city. And I'm glad that I'm not the person making that decision.
No, absolutely. Because again, this is something I heard on the radio yesterday. They were saying that if Toronto was picked, they would suspect, if it was Toronto and Vegas, they would suspect that Toronto would play out of the Vegas rink.
Yeah,
because they don't want a home team. So here's, I just don't understand, because if you were going to do 2 hub cities, it makes sense to have one conference in one and one conference in the other. That way they can just stay in those bubbles. Like if you split them half and half, then sure, that works for the first round, but then you have to rejuggle everybody after that second round. So if you don't want to have a team have their home city, so if let's just say it is Toronto, which it kind of is starting to sound like it's not going to be Toronto.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too.
If you stuck Toronto in Vegas, that means you're basically sticking all of the East Coast teams in Vegas and all of the West Coast teams in Toronto, which means I don't know what that means. Like, do they play at their regular scheduled times? Do they have multiple? Like Sportsnet has the rights in Canada to the games. Do you have West Coast games on one channel and East Coast games on the other channel, or is it just one channel and you're just intermixing them? Because you're right, you can't take the fan viewers at home out of their regular time zone. Like you can make the games earlier. I don't think you can make them later. Like you're not going to stay up to 9-10 o'clock to start watching an East Coast game, because that's just not your regular time zone. But the biggest impact it will have, I think, is the players, because if you have players from the East playing in a West Coast time slot and then they have to play at their regular times or whatever, they're going to be thrown off for a little while. So
totally. I think maybe the fairest choice would be Dallas, because it's fairly centrally located.
Dallas is having really bad COVID problems, though.
They are.
I think Dallas has been removed from the list of the 10 teams. I think we got 6 now. It was I actually read an article today that said it was down to 4, but I couldn't find another source on that. So the 6 were the 3 Canadian teams, and then Vegas, and then 2 more down in the States. So, but I'm at the opinion now. Like I think last podcast we had with your dad on, I was saying, I kind of hope one team one set of hub cities is in Canada and one's in the States. I don't even care about that anymore, because the more I think about it, and we even said on that podcast, it literally makes no difference. Like there's going to be a small economy boost for, the housing of those players and whatever accommodations they make in the restaurants and stuff. But that is super insignificant compared to a normal year where you're having ticket sales and just general people in the city enjoying bars and stuff like that. So it really, to me, does not matter where it is. It just matters that the time schedules are kind of okay. Like, sure, give me early afternoon games. That's fine. It sucks that we got to work and maybe we'll miss some of those, but I'll take that over staying up super late. But it's just, like I said, it's weird for the players because their schedules are going to be thrown off. And the more you hear about it, just, to me, like unbiased, 100% unbiased, it makes way more sense to have both hub cities in Canada now. And I think the players would feel more comfortable with that, because, like I said from the top, if you look at Orlando and you look at Florida and you look at Arizona, like you have 2 major leagues, like 2 of the big leagues in North America trying to go in there and do their playoffs. And as a player, you're just looking at that saying, whoa, like there's people everywhere getting it. There's players getting it. There's coaches getting it. And another comment I seen today was one of the players speaking. He said, I'm not necessarily worried about myself, because, the demographic of us players is, we're young, fairly in shape people. So even if we get it, chances are we won't even have symptoms, or we'll have mild symptoms. But some of the coaches and some of the coaching staff are old guys. So if they get it, it puts them at risk. So he said, I'm worried about the whole thing. And he said that's just kind of like, he said, I hope Donald Fair, who is the president of the union, he said, I hope him and Gary in their conversations are taking everything into account, not just getting the games going, because it's obviously about money. And you do have players saying, you know what, this is just too much, let's throw it out. And then you have other players saying, you know, we don't have enough information. And you have other players saying, you know, let's just buckle up and go and hopefully everything will work out. So I don't know. I don't know where we are right now. Like, we were supposed to have Hub City News last week. Like Gary said, in order to have things start on time, we have to have this done. Like, we have to let our media partners know. And we don't know. So I don't know if we're going to hear this week. Like, you would think we'd have to hear this week because time is running out.
There's so much planning that needs to go into this. We have to learn soon.
Which is another fair comment that I believe that unnamed Western Conference player said, was he thinks things are just moving too fast. And you know, if you're just a casual fan, you're sitting back, you're like, come on, let's go. But if you're like us right now and you're actually sitting down and thinking about all the little things that need to be figured out, there's so much work that needs to be done right now. And if things keep getting bad on the outside, like, yeah, people aren't bubbling right now, which kind of explains why players are getting it, because they're not being told to isolate. So players are still allowed to go out. They're reporting to their teams, but it's still phase 2. It's not the forced bubble yet. So yes, when that forced bubble happens, it should get better, but it just shows, like, I don't know, like I said, the staff going in and out, player temptations to leave at night to go, you know, have a drink at a bar or just to go out. Like, there's just so many things. And like, what happens if the playoffs were now and those 3 Tampa Bay players caught it and then it started spreading to their coaching staff? Like, they shut down their whole operation right now. Are you going to shut them down for the whole playoffs and then that round just ends? Like,
yeah, so what happens if this, say this is 2 months from now, and a bunch of players from Montreal get COVID-19? Does that mean that they're removed from the playoffs and Pittsburgh just gets a bye into the next round? Like, how does that work? Is that, like, you could argue that other teams could argue, well, that's not fair. Pittsburgh didn't play any games. Like, that, like, this, no, like, everyone should be able to be in the same position. So it's risky. It's super risky. I think it's going to get canceled at the last minute because a team or a player or something's going to happen too soon to the start date, even a delayed start date. I just don't see this happening. I think it's all going to get canceled.
Bill Daly was on and saying that, you know, if we get a case, we're going to remove that player and continue.
Oh, really?
So at what point is it too many players to be able to remove those players and you have to do something?
Well, how does that work? If you remove, say, 4 players of your team, get it. Do you have backup standby players to come in and replace?
Well, you do, players, because that's what they were saying was they have to have expanded rosters because you can't just call someone up on injuries. Like, once you go into that bubble is set. So you're taking all of those people in with you. So once you go into the bubble, you have extra people, and that's the extra people you have to work with. But if 4 players get it and they all share that locker room and all playing together, can you just remove them and no one else is affected? Because they're in the bubble. They're literally hanging out with each other all the time while they're in this bubble.
If you had a bunch of forwards go out, or say you had a bunch of defensemen that go out, and you only have 4 defensemen left in your whole backup bubble and your whole backup roster and your team. Okay, realistically, you could take some forwards and put them back on defense. I think you'll probably have at least 3 goalies, maybe 4 in your entire roster of 30 or whatever it is. But what if, say there's 3 goalies, what if 2 of them get injured or get COVID-19 and you have 1 goalie left? Do you put a player as a goalie, as a backup goalie? You can't take a David Ayers, a Zamboni person and bring them in. That's not going to be possible. So I don't know. Just like you said, there's so many different things to figure out. I just don't think there's enough time. Like, even if we were planning for a year out, starting this in June of 2021 to finish the season, I don't even know if that's enough time to do this 100% effectively. So I don't know.
So according to Pierre LeBrun from TSN, ESPN, he's saying right now that Toronto, Edmonton, Vancouver are all in for hub cities. And he thinks that both Edmonton and Vancouver are higher up than Toronto, which kind of makes sense because they have way less cases. It's a little more isolated. Toronto's like a big city with lots going on. Like, the other cities are big too, obviously, but not quite the same level. So would you be okay with having those two cities being the two cities?
Totally.
Even though the time zones are weird? Because I don't know, because I'm pretty sure Calgary is a 2 hour difference from Eastern and British Columbia is 3, right? So like 4 and 3 back from us, which is not normal for the rest of the world. Most people do not know what Atlantic time is, probably don't even know that it exists. Like where Neil and I live, where Eastern time is, we're 1 hour ahead of that. So like Atlantic time.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I think even just from a travel standpoint, if you had Edmonton and Vancouver, obviously they'd fly between the cities. I mean, when you go from the play-in round after that's done to round number 1, if a team or whoever had to travel from hub city to hub city, Edmonton to Vancouver is just a hop. So geographically, that makes sense. I don't think Americans would be upset that there'd be 2 Canadian teams as the hub cities. I don't think it matters.
So. The only people that might be upset would be like the broadcast partners, maybe like NBC, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. To me, if they were both in the States, like if all things were equal and the States was doing a way better job than Canada, I'd be like, go to the States. It makes more sense. Like less
as
chance.
As a Canadian, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, like if there's go to the place that gives you the best chance of not throwing the season out or the playoffs out. And another thing is if you go to Canada, like, money is a problem. The dollar is so bad right now that all the money that the NHL has to spend to get this thing going, they get like 30 some cents on the dollar if they go to a Canadian city. So if you do that in one, you're saving good money. If you go to both, you're saving even more. And like I said, the cases are so much less that it's just less chance that something's going to go wrong. And
yeah,
I don't know.
Do you remember that? I think it was a beer commercial. It was a kind of a joke beer commercial where there was an arena that was made on the top of in the Rocky Mountains or something.
Oh, I did. And they took them out in a helicopter.
Yeah, it was a Stanley Cup or something. I think they even brought the Stanley Cup there.
It was the Molson Red fridge
Molson
thing or something.
Yeah. That's a ridiculous commercial, but when you think about it, it's kind of an option. I mean, realistically it's not an option, but because of COVID-19, because of all this, imagine having all the players on the top of the Canadian Rockies on a made-up arena with mountains on all sides playing a game. That'd be epic.
This would not happen, obviously, but you and I both don't really care for outdoor games, right?
Correct.
Like, generally speaking, just whatever. They're fine for the people that go to them, but for a TV product, it's not that great.
Yeah,
but
I would love to go to one someday, but
let's just say, in theory, if it didn't cost them any money to do an outdoor game, which it would, so this is why this would not happen. But say next year, it looks like we're going into January for the start of the next season, if things go. So let's just say they want to have a quote-unquote Winter Classic, but you're still not allowed to have fans, which is another reason why this would not happen. They're not going to host an outdoor game if they can't have fans go to it.
Right.
But let's just say if they did, this is, like I said, totally hypothetical. If they could have that game where that was shot on top of those mountains, would that game interest you?
Absolutely. 100%.
Totally. So, number one, it wouldn't happen. Like I said, no fans, no money, ain't going to happen. Number two, helicoptering all those people up and building that rink up there ain't going to happen, cost money. But number three, it would look so good.
That would go down as one of the most incredible sporting events of all time.
Oh, 100%.
Like, think about other sports being able to do that. What other sport could do something like that would be that magical and that bold and that incredible? I don't think there's any other sport that you could do.
No.
You could have a baseball game in outer space, but that ended quickly.
They've had basketball games on aircraft carriers and stuff like that, which are pretty cool. Like, good show off of the military. Cool. But like, this is like, when you see those helicopter shots of this rink that's just in the middle of like all of these mountains going around, and it's still on a mountain itself. It's just like kind of in the middle of it. It's like very nice. But like, it's not practical to have a whole team and like buildings and facilities. Like, it just wouldn't work, but it would look so good if they did.
Yeah, I need to go find that commercial after this podcast. And
if you haven't seen it, if you're like in the States, and which you probably haven't seen it if you are in the States, you should look it up. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. I haven't seen it in a while. That was probably 10 years ago when I made that, or something, 5-10 years ago?
Probably 5. I don't think it was 10.
I don't know.
Jeez, I don't know though. Like, I look back at stuff now and I'm like, wow, that was that long ago. So I wouldn't be surprised actually if it was 10.
Yeah. So just to kind of bounce back a little bit, from my understanding, the potential American cities are Vegas, LA, Dallas, Chicago, Minneapolis, Pittsburgh, and Columbus. So that's narrowed down to 3. We just don't know what 3 those are officially, correct?
Vegas is definitely one of them.
Vegas is one.
The other 2, I don't know. I'm pretty sure Dallas is off the list.
I can't imagine Minneapolis is on the list still, just because of everything that's going on there, regardless of COVID-19. So I'm assuming that's been removed from the list, although it's kind of the perfect place for as far as time zones.
Like I was saying today, like they said the list is down to 4, but I couldn't source it. But it'd be interesting to know if we knew that was true or not, because that would actually answer a lot of questions, because we'd assume it's the 3 Canadian in Vegas and then make a decision, which is probably what it's down to right now anyway. Like I'm assuming it's going to be the 3 Canadian in Vegas, and like I don't know if they need to save face with NBC, because another big reason to have this season going is there's a big TV contract coming up in the States, and they want to cash in on that. So if they throw this season out, where does the value of that contract go? Like, where's the guarantee that the next season is going to be a full season and go off without a hitch? Like,
nothing will ever be the same, ever. There are going to be so many contract changes and clause changes, and whether it's with TV or players' contracts or staff contracts, like there's so much to change. There's so much to do. This is a nightmare.
Like, there's going to be all these contracts are all going to have force majeure clauses in them, which is like act of God, like unpredictable events, like a COVID pandemic. Basically, something unforeseen that we have to, scramble to find out what's covered, what's not. It's going to be in the writing now. Like, if this happens, you don't get paid for this. If this happens, whatever. But I don't know. We're a long ways off still, I think. Like, time is running out. Like, we're a couple weeks away from training camp supposed to be starting, and there's still a lot of I don't knows. There's still a lot of cases getting worse. There's star players getting it. There's staff getting it. Like, I don't know. Like,
do you know what else we're pretty far from?
What's that?
The release of the Seattle team name.
Yes. We were supposed to know in February. And now they're saying this fall at the earliest. Okay, we already talked about this.
We did.
Who is the marketing person in Seattle? There is nothing going on right now. This is the time.
I know the reason, though. They actually do have a legitimate reason. Actually, a couple of reasons, but one of the main reasons is trademark. Apparently, there's some trademark issues going on.
Sockeyes?
Well, they said that their organization will never be tone deaf, and they don't want to release a name or only consider one name and just kind of go with it. They have multiple options on the table, and they're getting trademarks for all those options and then deciding which one to go with. So they've already created logos, jerseys, and a bunch of other stuff for every single option. I don't know how many options they have. I think they have like 4 or 5 options based on the news out there, but they're running into issues trademarking some of the options. So
that seems kind of weird to me.
It is weird. I think they have a preference, but they don't want to rush it, I guess.
Why wouldn't you just pick your preference? Like, why wouldn't you have your marketing team, have your owner, have your whatever, say, this is the name we like the best. You logo it, you color it, and then you see if you can trademark it. And if you can't, you get something else. But if you can, release it. And if you can't trademark it, do the same thing for the next one. And then once you actually have a trademark and something you like, put it out there.
I think they had a decision made and they were trying to get it trademarked, and there was something bogging it down. They couldn't get it finalized. And that's when they decided to consider other options and trademark those as well. But they don't want to go with another one when their favorite one is still kind of in limbo. So I think they're waiting on that trademark to go through. And once that does, all the other ones kind of just go off to the side and they're going to go with their initial choice. But we're just kind of waiting for the trademark issue to be solved.
So do you have an opinion on what they're waiting for?
If it's not the Kraken.
Yes, yep. I am of the Kraken.
I am of the Kraken too. However, I think it's going to be Sockeyes. I think the trademark is with that name, or with something to do with that name. So,
will you be really surprised if it's something completely out of left field that we haven't heard yet? Because I will.
Like the Bingo Dabbers, or is this
like green
or
leaves,
made up word, or
like green leaves, or ocean turtles, like something just random, like
heck yeah,
like golden knights, like I don't know, like something like that, like not because there's been a lot of really good names suggested. Like we've seen tons of them online, and I'm just asking will you be surprised if it's not one of those? Or are you expecting it to be something we've already heard? So like Sockeyes, Kraken, pigeons.
One of the names that I saw going around was Black Fins. And I'm wondering, if that was one of their top choices, and because of everything that's going on in the States right now with racism, I'm wondering if they're kind of stepping back and thinking about, okay, hold on, let's review all these names to make sure that there's nothing, no hidden meaning to any of this stuff. That let's future-proof this name, basically. So I think maybe the racism part has something to do with the delaying of the name as well, because there's just a lot. There's a lot going on in the United States, whether it's COVID-19 related, racism, riots, whatever. So I understand their hesitation to release it, but how badly does the hockey community and even sports world just need that name to be released so we can either hate it or love it?
There's nothing going on right now. Like I said, if they have I would think that if they had the opportunity to release it, they would, because there's no reason to hold on to it. Like it's good PR for your club right now while there's nothing going on. And like, if you think Vegas would have got the name the owner wanted, like he originally wanted Black Knights, do you think that would now be under review?
Oh, I don't know. We have the Black Hawks, so
true.
I don't know what's going to happen with that team. The name Blackhawks and their logo does not offend me, but I can understand how it would offend someone else. I don't think the name should be changed. I don't think the logo should be changed. I'm not going to be upset if it does get changed. So with a team like the Black Knights, I mean, you could make the same argument, but I don't know. I think I can see an issue more with Blackhawks based on what it's, what it means, what it represents. Black Knights, that's not racist to me at all. That is like that, but I can understand how someone would try and make a fit about it and try and get it changed. So I don't know. I fear that the Blackhawks name and logo will be a conversation or topic ongoing for the next couple of years,
which it has
changes
been.
Or not. Yeah, which it already has been even before all this stuff happened. So I don't know. I don't know what you could rename it to that wouldn't be offensive, because you want to pay homage to that, or homage to the, what that represents, the Native Americans. So I don't know if you could name it anything that wouldn't be offensive to someone.
Like you said, glad we're not the ones having to make those decisions, because no matter what they do, they're not going to win everyone. Just people are not going to be happy no matter what. And
exactly.
You just got to try to pick the group that's the smallest group that's offended and go with them.
That's the Justin Trudeau method.
Yeah.
Appeal to the masses.
Yep. All right. So what you got next?
Okay. This is a weird thing to talk about. And it's kind of ridiculous that I'm even talking about it, but it's because there's nothing else to talk about. Okay. So just bear with me. It's about Matt Murray. I don't even know if you know this or not.
Okay. You don't. You sent me notes about Matt Murray, and I wanted to hear it from you. So hit me with it.
Okay. So Matt Murray has Instagram, okay? He has unfollowed the Pittsburgh Penguins on Instagram and some of the players on the team.
Really?
And people are saying, oh, he's gone. He's going. He knows he's getting traded, or he wants out. He's done in Pittsburgh. This is a ridiculous thing to talk about, okay? Because it could mean nothing, but it could actually mean something. I don't know, but I want to get your thoughts on it. Should we take this serious? Okay,
first of all, how intense are you to follow an account and keep checking to see if he's still following everybody or not?
I know.
Or how do you notice that he's not following someone anymore?
I don't know. He just loyal fans, man. Loyal fans.
Like, no, that's more than loyal. That's like intense
obsessive.
Loyal. Yeah, obsessive is definitely the right word. I don't know. Steven Stamkos liked a Toronto Maple Leafs tweet one time. People said he was going to go to Toronto, so
oh jeez.
I don't know. It is kind of weird, though. I don't know why you would do that.
I know it is slightly suspicious. I don't want to fall into the zone of conspiracy theory or saying something's going to happen because of that, but it is slightly suspicious.
One thing that it could be, maybe, I don't know. I don't follow the Tampa account. Geez. When I follow the Boston account, every time there's a penalty or a goal or a shot or whatever, they put it out on Twitter. So it's just like, while there's a Boston game going on, your feed gets spammed by that account. Maybe he just doesn't want his team spamming his account anymore.
Well, on Instagram, you can hide people from your feed.
So why wouldn't he do that then?
I don't know. So that can't be the reason. I don't know.
We got something going on here, I think.
Yeah, I didn't look into it. I didn't go to his account and see who he actually follows. Maybe that would be highly suspicious if he was following a different NHL team.
If he just started following a different team.
Yes, if he just started following, I don't know.
Do you think there's a possibility that he does not want to play and he's doing that kind of like as a silent protest saying, you know, the owners are pushing for us to go. I'm not down with it. Unfollow. There you go. There's my little protest. That would be, out of all the things that it could be, I think that's the highest thing it could be, is he's just someone who's not interested in playing, or he's not comfortable with where the situation is right now to be able to support it, and he wants either more clarification or more information or stuff like that. You know, it's obviously just speculation. I don't know what his intentions are, but that I would have to think it's COVID related or return to play related, and he has a disagreement with either the union representing his team, which would be most of his teammates, or his kind of ownership group. I don't know. That'd be my guess. I don't think it'd be trade related.
It could mean absolutely nothing, and we are just idiots. Or I'm an idiot because I brought it up.
Well,
but there's nothing to talk about. Obviously, there's Buffalo stuff to talk about, but like we said at the beginning, we're saving that conversation for next week with our special guest. But yeah, I got nothing else, man.
Okay, I got something, and we do have something big to talk about that has escaped you. Yes.
Oh. And
I don't know how to approach it because it's an intense topic.
Oh, yes. Okay. I didn't write it down because I knew that you wanted to talk about it. And I don't even know the full story, so I've been hiding in the dark a little bit on the topic because I knew that you wanted to talk about it. So educate me.
It's I don't know if we should be talking about it. And I said that to you at the beginning. This is like an intense story with like very mature themes and very intense crap. And depending on our market or our demographics of who listens to this, I don't know if it's appropriate to be talking about this with them, or I don't know if it's something they're interested in, or like, it's obviously a huge problem and it's something that needs to be addressed and needs to be fixed. And I guess you only do that by shining a light on it. But you know, every time you go to read something about it or watch something on it, you get it's like prefaced by saying, you know, disturbing content warning. And I don't know if that's appropriate to talk about on a podcast. So I don't know if we should go into everything and talk about it, or if we should just give kind of a PG version of what's going on, or like I don't know what level we should be tackling this on, and I don't know what people that are listening want. I don't know what we want.
I think maybe we could keep it PG and leave the invitation of people who want to know more specific information to go find it online. But I think it is important that we say not all of the information has been released yet. There's still things that obviously we don't know. There's stories out there that have not been told yet that will be told eventually. But it is definitely important to talk about. So we can do the PG version.
Okay. So after you're done listening to this podcast, people, if you haven't heard of this, I think a lot of people in Canada and the United States have heard about it, probably, especially a lot of people in Canada, since it affects the Canadian Hockey League.
Yep.
And like the junior leagues. But if you are from the States, or if you're from Europe or wherever you're from and you haven't heard this, go on the Hockey News website, hockeynews.com. And it was just posted 3 days ago, June 18th. It was by Ken Campbell, and it just talks about an explosive, shocking allegations against junior hockey. And I guess we'll get into it a little bit. So, a lawsuit was filed in Toronto on Thursday, which is when this article came out. It's against the Canadian Hockey League, the Western League, the Ontario League, and the Quebec Major Junior League. Daniel Carcello and Garrett Taylor are the ones that are kind of spearheading this. And the allegations in this, like, none of this has been proven true, but it just, you know, if you talk to people who know and you listen to radio people who talk to people who know, this is stuff that's been going on for a long time, and people have just turned a blind eye to it.
Yeah, it's been backed up by multiple
or it's just been
players.
accepted. And it basically concerns hazing. It's talking about extreme hazing if we're going PG. So
like it's like sexual.
Yeah, so we're talking about players who are 15 to 17 years old. They're victims of hazing, bullying, physical and verbal assaults, sexual harassment, sexual assault, stuff like that. So like, I don't know. When I played competitive hockey, there was a little bit of stuff, but it was like super minor. Like,
you have to expect it. There's definitely a line of acceptable hazing, and that's just, it's part of the initiation, and it doesn't have to be egregious or hardcore or like at the level that this stuff is. It could be as simple as, I don't know. You know when a rookie comes on to play in the NHL and they invite him to skate on the ice first? Mm-hmm. And he goes on the ice and they all don't follow him and they just let him do the...
Like harmless stuff.
Harmless hazing, kind of like that.
Or like, if someone gets traded to your team, it's on him to pay for the first team meal or something like that. Like,
Totally. That's all fun and game stuff.
Okay, so I don't know how to go at this because
it is hard to talk about.
In order to say what happened, I have to say what happened. Yeah. So maybe I will say some stuff and just not get into like really detailed stuff. So, like some examples of what's being alleged in this document is they were telling people to self-pleasure themselves in front of their teammates. I guess that's a PG way of putting it.
Yeah.
They had to like drink other people's spit and piss and other things that come out of other places you shouldn't be doing. There's even talk about stuff with animals. Like, what?
It's weird. It's very strange. I don't understand.
Sticking like, brooms up people's, you know what's like if you go onto this Hockey News article, there is like paragraph of different things that are being alleged. And the worst part about it, well, it's not really the worst part because the stuff is the worst part, but you have coaches coming into the room, seeing it, laughing, and then leaving. And then you have players over the years, which is what is in this lawsuit, saying that they reported it to the coach and to the team representatives and to the people in charge, and nothing was ever done because it's just considered part of what happens.
I just don't understand how that is acceptable hazing. Like, take someone's skates, take the laces out, or tie the laces together or something like that so they can't get it apart. Like that. Why does it need to escalate to the level where we're drinking another person's body fluids? Like, I don't understand. Like,
okay, you know what? I think I'm going to read some of this stuff because we're already kind of there, and we're near our end of our podcast. Like, this will probably be the last thing we talk about. So if you're not interested in following or hearing about this, or if this is a little bit too much for you, then now may be the good time to pause, and we'll talk to you next week.
But if you are one of those people, thank you for listening.
Absolutely.
To this point.
But, you know, I think in order to address a problem, you have to know what the problem is. You can't be, I don't know what the word is, like just naive, like just, oh, what's normal, or it's not affecting me, or I don't need to know about that, or like.
Yeah. It's good to stay informed.
It's kind of like what's happening in the States right now with the protests is you have to address it. It has to be addressed. So here are some of the things that are in the allegations or in the claim. So it says, during showers, rookies were required to sit in the middle of the shower room naked while older players urinated, spat saliva, and chewing tobacco on them. And then it says at least once coaches walked into the shower while this was occurring, laughed, and walked out. So you got a player sitting there naked, being forced to sit there naked, and people are pissing on him, basically.
That's just like...
And it's just like, why?
Not only is that not acceptable, it's just weird.
Yeah, it's like super weird. And it says rookies were repetitively hit on their bare butt with a sawed-off goalie stick, developing large welts and open sores. Injuries were so bad they couldn't sit down even while attending local high school classes. They advised team staff of the abuse, which did not stop. It says on road trips, rookies would be stripped naked and sent to the bus bathroom 8 at a time. Like in a bus, 8 people shoved into the bathroom, and the older players would tape the boys' clothes in the ball, which were thrown into the bathroom. The boys were not allowed out until they came out dressed, which could take hours. And then older players would pour saliva, chew, and urine on them through the bathroom vents in front of coaches and trainers. Like, again, that's disgusting. Why? Like, what?
And these are minors.
Like, yeah, like 15 to 17 year olds.
Yeah. Like, this isn't adults. These are minors.
Rookies had to bob for apples in a cooler filled with older players' urine, saliva, and other bodily fluids. Like,
that's disgusting.
It's disgusting. Older players would put rookies in a laundry bin on wheels 4 at a time. They would run the laundry bin into the wall as fast as they could go. Players suffered injuries, including being knocked unconscious. It was called the rookie rocket. Like, why are you trying to hurt your teammates?
Then why did... That sounds like an episode of Jackass.
Yeah. Like, you shouldn't be doing that to people who you're trying to win a championship with that are your teammates.
Why would you want to injure your own teammates?
Older players would organize orgies at house parties. Rookies were required to take part in sexual acts while all of the other players watched and took part. Like 15 to 17-year-olds.
I don't understand, but... Okay.
The head coach walked in on a naked rookie taped to the table with his buttocks in the air. Other players were whipping him with a belt. The head coach took part, whipped the child, and laughed when the boy cried.
Dang.
Like, these are the people who are responsible for these kids, because that's what they are. They are kids.
Like I said at the beginning, we don't even know all the stories. There's going to be more.
Like, how would you feel if this was your kid?
I'd be livid. I whoop ass.
Yeah. And it says the head coach, assistant coach, and league officials all knew of these abuses. It says an informal investigation took place by the OHL and CHL agents, but no findings were released. Abusers were not punished, and no steps were taken to address the abuse. And
what year is that?
It doesn't say. It says racist, sexist, homophobic slurs were repeatedly directed at rookie players and were used on a daily basis. Part of this lawsuit is from 2008 to 2009.
I wonder if there's any NHL current players involved in this, whether they are the rookie or they are the older player.
I don't know. Or maybe they're the players that maybe they could have been players that could have been great, maybe. But they backed out because screw this.
Yeah.
Or maybe they told their parents and their parents pulled them out.
Who knows?
One of the coach examples is during the team practice, the head coach took a player aside and demanded that he fight other 16 or 17-year-old players in order to increase his intensity level. This took place numerous times, and he was concussed during one fight at practice, and the other team members suffered injuries during such fights.
Was he fighting his own teammate?
Yeah, he told him to fight his teammate to get his intensity level, and they would literally fight each other and cause concussions and other injuries. These are your teammates. These are your players as the coach. It's like, we need more intensity. You go fight that guy. No, don't just like play fight. Like, I want you to be mad fight.
That is intense, but not the right way to go about it, I don't think.
It says one time a coach provided the team credit card to one of the older players for them to buy alcohol for the team rookie party. These 16 and 17-year-old rookies were required to dress up in women's clothing and were forced to consume large amounts of alcohol to the point of blacking out and vomiting. That's what the coach wanted them to do.
I need names.
Like, why?
We need names, because this is ridiculous. Obviously, it's a lawsuit, so legally maybe it can't be mentioned yet. But
I think there are some names in it. But I'm going to stop there. Like, I think you get the point. And this has been going on for who knows how long, according to people who know people who are in, like, if you listen to like radio shows, they have friends that are part of scrums that go, or not just scrums, but colleagues, like reporters that go into the rooms for after games and before games. Those people aren't dumb. They know what's going on. Yeah. So totally. If you talk to them, they say, if you're in the industry, this news, while shocking, isn't surprising, which is really bad. That says a lot. Like, it's really bad. Like,
how could this have gone this long without it not being made public?
I don't know.
It's I guess fear, which is understandable.
Do you think this is something that just affects the Canadian Hockey League, or do you think like NCAA football and do you think this is like
I don't think this is hockey related. This is sports related. I think it's a culture thing.
So, do you think anything's going to change? Do you think enough? Because now that Daniel Carcillo and a couple other people are spearheading this, and it's out in the limelight like never before. Because I've certainly never heard of anything like this. Like sure, I would think like NCAA football and stuff like that. Like, yeah, you watch a couple football movies and you kind of like, yeah, they like to party and they do kind of stupid stuff. But this is like, this is extreme, and this is real. This isn't like, oh, this could be something that happens. This is actually what's happening in Canada, in Canadian teams for, like I said, 15 to 17-year-olds.
I think it'll still happen, but probably not to this degree. And if it does happen to this degree, it'll get mentioned. Like, it's gone too far. This has to be the moment where things change. So good on them for shining a light on it, bringing it to everyone's attention, because we need to get this settled, investigated, and this needs to stop.
Like, the onus has to be on the coach. Like, hey man, if you see something, you have to stop and report it. Yeah. Stop it and report it.
Especially because they're
not contribute to it or not create it. Like, you imagine walking into a room and there's one of your players is laying there butt ass naked with his ass way up in the air, and you just go over and grab the belt and do your own little whip on him, have a chuckle, and then walk back out and let them keep at it. Like what?
That's creepy.
I read this story and I couldn't believe it when it came out. Like, I think I seen it an hour after it came out, because I actually was on Twitter, which I never am. And it was posted an hour ago. And then I sent it into our Discord, like, look at this crap. Like, I just couldn't believe it. So anyway, I wanted to bring it up on the pod. I just didn't know how. Maybe we went too far. Maybe we didn't. I don't know. You guys can let us know in the comments on YouTube.
I think regardless, it's important to talk about whether you agree with our opinions, whether you weren't aware of the story and you're disappointed that you heard it because of the graphic nature of it. It's important to talk about because this stuff matters and this stuff needs to change, whether it's this with hockey and the hazing or whether it's with racism and the riots and everything like that. It's good to have conversations about this stuff, regardless of your opinion. Just the fact that we're talking about this stuff is going to force change for the better.
Yeah, one of the 31 Thoughts podcast, when they were talking about the riots, I think the title of the episode was "We still have a lot of uncomfortable conversations to go." Like that's what this is. Yeah. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but I agree with you. It is something that you have to have whether you want to or not.
Cool. Well, that kind of wraps up this podcast, I think.
I think so too. I'm a little disappointed we couldn't have our Buffalo talk because I was actually looking forward to that because I have a lot of things to say about that, and I'm sure our guest does too, that we will have next week.
Yeah.
And then after next week's podcast, like I said, we are going on vacation and we are going to do all kinds of stuff. I don't know if that's going to mean a bonus podcast throughout the week. Like, I don't know if we're doing having a yak. We're just going to have to play it by ear when we're down there. And I guess we'll talk about it more in next week's podcast, but I am looking forward to it.
I suspect we'll do a lot of filming, but not a lot of editing. Mm-hmm. So anything we do film during that week will probably not come out to the following week. During that week that we are at the lake, I'm going to pre-record videos and have them scheduled to release each day. Mm-hmm. So although I will be on vacation and I won't be physically here to film in this room like I normally do, the content won't stop on the productions channel. That'll continue. There'll be a video every single day. And yeah, I guess the podcast that we film next weekend will come out that day. And anything we do film during the week, I guess, could come out the following Sunday. So there shouldn't be any gaps. There should be more content eventually, just not right away.
And this should be, like I said, I think I said off the start of this should be the last time we do one of these type of videos. Like, we should be in the studio next week, and then we're on vacation, so who knows where we'll be for that video or that podcast. Yeah. We could be on an island. We could be in a trailer. Like, we were sitting in two chairs with like a window behind us. It looked really dumb. So I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to have to figure that out.
We need lights there.
We have to see if we go outside, if there's too much wind noise, if there's too much. We were down at the beach one night and these frogs were just croaking, and it was just like, it was the most unbelievable thing ever. It's just like, there was one in the water, like in the lake, and then one in like a pond to the right, and they were just going at it. Like, who can scream the loudest and longest? And if they were doing that the whole time we were talking, then ain't nobody get time to listen to that. So yeah, we'll play it all by ear. But for this one, mosquitoes. I think mosquitoes, we gotta find something for that. So
yeah. All right, guys, thanks for watching and listening. Really appreciate it. We're on YouTube here for our video viewers, and we're also audio only. We like to appreciate our audio only listeners on iTunes and Google. So if you're an audio only listener, we love you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Hope you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us a review on iTunes. And we will see you next week with our special guest. Adios.